First and only video today. Every crazy drug you've never heard of. Trust me, bro.
The craziest drugs that you have never heard of. At
This
point,
video,
YouTube
hold on.
You have never heard of.
This video does not in any way, shape, or form encourage the condone of any drugs. Education, viewer discretion is advised. Viewer discretion advised.
At this point in YouTube history, I think everybody has watched at least one video about crazy or obscure drugs. And while these videos are interesting...
What's like the craziest, the only thing that comes to my mind for like crazy, maybe like, I'm literally just thinking like salvia and that might be it, bro. Maybe like some weird mushroom stories, but I'm literally just thinking salvia. Maybe like PCP or something.
Usually, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, and typically the entries are rather surface level. Fortunately, this video is...
We're not gonna watch all this, by the way.
Drugs that are so random and so unknown, but
it is an hour and 30 minutes long. We're not gonna watch all of it, but we're gonna watch it until I want to play Mikabonk.
The general public that even super niche internet communities don't know about them. Oh yeah, and this list gets crazier as it goes on. Let's begin. Salvinorin B methoxymethyl ether. If you
What'd I say?
thought of salvia when you heard salvinorin in the jumbled mess of scientific smart people speak, then you would be correct. But this isn't just regular salvia. This video is about drugs you've never heard of, and this stuff is way crazier than regular salvia. In fact, I think a good name for this would be super salvia. But in case you're unfamiliar with regular salvia, let me recap quickly. You see, with regular salvia,
Super salvia.
every trip report that I've seen, using salvia is almost a guaranteed miserable time. And even at that, the bar is so low for salvia.
Is salvia the drug where you take it and you like experience a lifetime as like a lamp? Is that what am I thinking of the right thing? Hold on. Let me try and look this up. Story where a guy takes drugs and lives as a lamp. Okay. Or am I confusing it with the... Oh, it was the lampshade. It was wrong. Okay, there's an entire post about it and it just says... This makes no sense. Oh, he was in a coma. He wasn't even... No, he was drugged. I don't know what drug he was on. Alright, let's just continue. Here we go.
Salvia that even a good experience is pretty much just not being as traumatized as the majority of people that take it. But Salvinorin B isn't regular salvia. This drug is salvia's crackhead cousin. Honestly, for all intents and purposes, this drug is probably one of the most cursed compounds ever made for a variety of reasons. For starters, the National Library of Medicine states that this chemical is among the most potent and selective kappa opioids known. And in this case, stronger is not always better. To this day, there has only ever been one reliable Salvinorin B trip report. And that's simply because even some of the most seasoned psychonauts don't want to touch it. Likely because it's a cursed compound with a ridiculously long half-life. According to sources, Salvinorin B is 5 times more potent than Salvinorin A and lasts for a duration of 2 to 3 hours. Which brings using this drug into
Which is like fucking days or like years in a fucking bag trip.
Of sheer insanity. If you are crazy enough to want to try this drug, you would need to heavily mentally prepare yourself beforehand. Because breakthrough drugs like salvia and DMT are known to cause...
I've thought about like... Okay, this is gonna be kind of a tangent, but I kind of I'm very curious about mushrooms, but I know it's like a... I'm not an expert at all, by the way. Don't take it like grain of salt, baby. But I don't even think you can like prepare yourself. Like you have to like if you mushrooms are such an intense like drug that you have to. I feel like you can't mentally prepare yourself enough before you take it, which is. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just curious about it. I don't know.
Cause time dilation, which means that your trip could feel longer than it actually is in real life. Time dilation is one of those things that's commonly
That's
discussed
fucking.
online,
That's
yet
terrifying.
nobody really knows how or why it happens. In a post I found on the DMT forum, a user states, "I felt like I lived an entirely different life in the DMT world. It felt like 10 years or so. I even had a family." And if that's not crazy enough, another user commented on this post saying, "This happened to me on Salvia, and I had absolutely no awareness of this life. I lived a whole lifetime in another life, and then zap, I'm in my bedroom. It was unsettling to me." And another user discussing his trip wrote, "What feels like an eternity only..."
Do you think it's like a dream where you're like on it and then you live out like a 15-year life and then you just wake back up and you like forget it in like 10 minutes, like a fucking dream? That would be so weird. And then you gotta think about, what if I'm on it right now? What if this ain't even real, bruh?
lasted 15 minutes. Keep in mind, this is just regular salvia, which only lasts 5 to 20 minutes. Considering Salvinorin B...
That was just regular salvia? What? Are we hearing this? I thought he was talking about the crazy drug.
was more potent and lasts about 15 times longer. It's no wonder why so few even dare to try it. So, what happened to the person that did take this compound? Well, for that, we actually need to look at the research paper. Yeah, a research paper. The doctors here had the psychonaut in the study measure his dose in micrograms, which is extremely tiny. An average dose of regular salvia is measured in milligrams, which is obviously much more. The psychonaut in this study, which is basically just a fancy name for someone who likes psychedelics, said the following about his experience with Salvinorin B. "My head was observed to retract, and my face was frozen in a frighteningly blank expression as if I were having a stroke. My hands adopted a strange pose and waved around very slowly, alternately creepily awkward and graceful. I remembered none of this." Then, when talking about actually breaking through on the chemical, which basically means losing track of your current reality and entering hyperspace, they wrote, "I wasn't actually perceiving any objects in my environment. It was my mind that I was perceiving, as a manifestation of the movement of a 5-dimensional object through a 4-dimensional membrane."
Hold on. Say that again.
Perceiving any objects in my environment. It was my mind that I was perceiving, as a manifestation of the movement of a 5-dimensional object through a 4-dimensional membrane.
That's like something you can, like, when you're not, like, you can't describe, it's impossible to describe what you're feeling on like, even just base level drugs. Like, it's so hard to explain, and that was just a whole lot of nothing. What does that even mean? Maybe, you know what, maybe maybe this little stick boy is just about to explain it to me right now perfectly.
Whatever that means. Considering
Okay.
this was such a minuscule dose, I can't imagine the trip report someone might come back with if they took a full send level dose. Luckily for you guys, there is actually one...
Full send? Full sendy? We're get sendy? We're get 6 sendy? Full send?
one other trip report on the entire internet, although it isn't reliable as an actual research paper. This trip report is simply titled, "I cannot comprehend what happened." It's actually written by a career chemist who synthesized the compound himself, and upon taking it was transported into an entirely different life in the 1950s. This is his quote on the experience. "I fell through my floor into an endless array of eerie sounds. I eventually reached the bottom and felt my body hit the ground. A creature walked towards me and grabbed me by the neck and said, 'in a disturbing voice.' Then he threw me up and I landed. I stood up and realized that I was in the 1950s. The trip went from impossible events to me simply existing in a different time. I walked around on this street and found
If I took this, my trip would be Minecraft Zombie. My trip would be... I'd be Minecraft Zombie, and I'd walk to the mines at night, and then I'd mine, and then I'd see Minecraft Zombie, and he'd go, brrr. Minecraft Zombie.
newspaper on the ground. I could read each and every article, and on the top it read August 6th, 1953. I didn't know that it wasn't real. It was all I knew. I could remember my life, but it wasn't me. It was the life of a person that I was in 1953. I could remember my childhood, school years, first job, everything.
Whoa, you just spawn in with fully functioning memories. Like, that is so, you just fabricate an entire, not even just an entire world, but memories in your head of like the previous, that's, okay. I feel like a broken record. That's fucking insane. There's, wow, it's really dark in here. Spooky. There's, at what point is it just, I mean, I feel like it has to be just your interpretation. Like, if you go back to, because obviously you weren't alive in the 1950s. Maybe you were, I don't know how old this guy is. But, like, it's got to just be what you think the 1950s was. Like, if you, like, you can't just know. I don't know, bro.
Potentially cool as it may seem to almost time travel, this one part of this one story doesn't make this compound seem any less terrifying. 4-CMA. Like
Next
many of the
compound.
obscure chemicals on this list,
Next
finding
compound.
information on 4-CMA is not easy. That's because 4-CMA is a research chemical. If you don't know what research chemicals are, they're basically synthetic chemicals that were Frankensteined in a lab as part of a research project in an attempt to either improve on an existing chemical or to create an entirely new drug. Basically, research chemicals are the result of scientists crafting random stuff like they're brewing potions in Minecraft. The thing is, most of these chemicals don't make the cut, typically because they either have terrible side effects or they aren't useful medically, or they just lost funding on the research. If the established drugs that most people know about are the tip of the iceberg, then research chemicals pretty much cover the rest of the iceberg all the way to the bottom. 4-CMA is a research chemical that was originally synthesized in the 1960s, as it was supposed to be a stimulant that behaved similarly to an amphetamine. Despite what scientists expected, however, 4-CMA had a much more antidepressant effect than stimulant effect in test subjects. But because it was mildly pleasant to use, drug dealers actually pressed this into their own pills to evade authorities. According to sources, 4-CMA was first identified at the Tomorrowland Festival in 2015, where a tablet was found in the possession of a drug dealer. Then it seemed to have disappeared while a study conducted in 2019 reported detection of 4-CMA in pills once again. Now you might be curious, why is the slightly pleasant antidepressant on this list? Well, it turns out that this drug is highly neurotoxic to its users. In studies done with rats, it was found to permanently reduce serotonin, and in further studies done on it, it was also found that administration of 4-CMA caused a prolonged reduction in the levels of serotonin in the brain 1 month after injecting a single dose of the drug. In other words, it physically kills your serotonin receptors permanently. Now,
That's dude, imagine that's so bad. Imagine like you're already under the influence of some drug and you're at a concert and your like perception is lowered or whatever, and you say yes to a drug and then you can't ever be happy ever again in your fucking life. Oh god. I wonder if there's probably someone out there that's you don't remember taking it, and then like for the rest of your life you can't be happy, and you're like, man, why am I so depressed? Don't do drugs.
to make things worse, there are still vendors that are knowingly selling this toxic chemical with no regard for the general public. This is bad because these drugs can easily end up in a wide variety of recreational pressed pills that are sold on the black market. In regards to this, in the Research Chemicals subreddit, one user wrote, "Nice. A substance that could fry your brain like only a lifetime of MDMA use could in one sitting," which I feel is pretty accurate. And it's even been reported that abusing this chemical could leave you with, quote, "an irreversible depression that would be like an MDMA come down every day for the rest of your life."
Yeah, that's
Although
terrible.
It's been speculating that reaching this state would require multiple large doses over a long period of time. If you don't want to take the chance at permanently damaging your serotonin neurons, I would strongly recommend staying away from this drug. I almost want to call
Just don't take
4CMA
it.
super MDMA, but it's really not the case. It's honestly just the worst of both worlds. The upside of MDMA is completely subdued in 4CMA, and the downside of MDMA is amplified to such an extreme degree there is absolutely no value in the trade-off. Pyros. No, not the TF2 pyro. Pyros is an abbreviated word for the class of drugs known as pyrrolidinopherones. And they're pretty much crack on crack. If you remember the bath salts epidemic from about a decade ago, well,
Ooh.
pyros are to blame. They're pretty well known in the fringe drug community as being the most addictive class of chemicals on Earth. And when I say most addictive, I'm talking about 20 times more addictive than crack. These drugs
What
are
the
absolutely insane,
fuck?
and they don't even hold a candle to the mainstream drugs known for their addictiveness. For example, with commonly known drugs, most people actively decide to stop using it before their supply runs out. This is definitely not the case with this stuff. Barely anyone in recorded history has started using it.
Wait.
For example, with commonly known drugs, most people actively decide to stop using it before their supply runs out. This
Why? Wait, what? Am I being dumb?
is definitely not the case with this stuff. Barely
Why would you do that? Am I being stupid? Why would you throw away the rest of your drugs? Am I geeked?
anyone to stop using it before their supply runs out. This is definitely not the case with this stuff.
I don't-
Anyone in
maybe I'll
recorded
explain.
history has
I don't know.
started using a supply of pyros and just stopped halfway through out of sheer willpower. In most stories on the internet, people who
I don't
start
know.
a stash of pyros only end their days-long bender because they became full-blown psychotic and ended up in a psych ward, or if they're lucky, started seeing shadow people early on and got scared enough to flush the rest of their supply down the toilet. But this stuff is so addictive that I'm convinced that somebody has flushed their stash down the toilet and then immediately gone sewer diving afterwards on a quest to find his precious like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Because of this, even the most seasoned
Oh, like you do it and then you're instantly hooked on it and you finish the rest until you don't have any more. Is that what's going on right now? Or am I missing something? Cuz I don't understand how you would, but also like I feel like most drugs you would just you wouldn't take them all anyway. Like it's not like you just do weed and then it's not like you just like smoke a blunt and then I don't even know what I'm trying. All right. I'm not
users
intelligent
won't take this
enough.
stuff because the compulsion to take more is practically impossible to overcome. In hindsight,
That-
no
okay.
wonder we had a bath salts zombie epidemic. Just to clarify, bath salts are literally just pyros. Imagine you're trying to quit a chemical that's 50 times more addictive than crack, and every time you make a stop at the gas station for your nightly Twinkies, a scraggly old dude in the back who smells like salami is tempting you to buy it for a couple bucks. The thing about the bath salts epidemic was that whenever authorities finally got around to outlawing the latest chemical, the drug lords that sold them would just hire some armchair chemist on the internet to look for slightly different chemicals on the dark web that kinda looked the same. Keep in mind, they wouldn't even know what the side effects would be. So basically, they were pretty much just selling random research chemicals to homeless people as test subjects. Because of this, a lot of people got caught up in bath salts addiction around 2012 because they had no idea how addictive they would be. But that's
Yeah, I was
not
a
even
baby.
it. The most diabolical aspect of pyros is that they make you extremely horny. I'm not joking. Like a 64-hour edge session with no break or sleep until you literally pass out from exhaustion or get submitted to urgent care. They say that meth can turn you into a gooning degenerate, but this stuff is like meth times 5. To make matters even worse, somewhere along the way, armchair chemists on the internet somehow figured to conveniently turn this compound into vape juice, which pretty much makes this invention the world's worst jewel. So the next time your mom
Ooh.
gets mad at you for your vaping addiction, feel free to remind her that there's some 45-year-old dude with scraggly hair in his basement vaping super crack and jorking it for 10 days
You turn into a goon beast. You turn uncontrollably. You turn into a goon demon. All you can do is urge. You literally just urge, literally. Alright.
straight. The amount of gooning behavior Pyros cause would literally make an average Discord moderator look like a Buddhist monk. Long story short, outside of their extremely addictive qualities, these drugs are well known for turning you into a D1 gooner. Like, legitimately, the Michael Jordan of gooning. From what I've read, this drug easily makes you the biggest degenerate in the world. Trust me when I say, Pyros are one diabolical class of drugs. 5-MeO.
Alright, is it time for a little... I think it's time for a little game.